want to take the time with you here as my former mentor in the industry, someone who I've always respected, and also someone who has had a very unique opportunity to be a building manager and also provide mechanical knowledge for a building that was very unique, had a large pool feature and a concierge, um, several towers, and you worked very closely with the Strata Council. So I think you'd be a great person to ask a few questions about the industry. Tell me a bit about how you got into the strata maintenance business and what motivated you to get into it.
When I first learned about strata and the condominium housing, I actually was quite excited about it, as I thought it was a kind of a housing miracle that people could get together and have small communities in a large city. Technically, my interest was in heating, ventilation, air conditioning, because that was my experience as a trade person. But I'd say there was the overriding reason I went into this particular industry was I thought the idea of all these large towers in Vancouver being a community, each a separate community, had positive features to it.
Okay, interesting. I didn't know that. When you first got the job, what was your initial impression?
I was overwhelmed with the amount of equipment in these buildings. Realized that this was not a simple janitor's job where I swept the floors, but there was a lot of stuff to look after. Most of the stuff, even though I had construction experience building that kind of equipment, I ran across a lot of equipment I didn't know what it did.
How much training did you receive?
As far as training on the job, none. Very little. I did receive some training from one strata member. In fact, he was a counselor on the strata, and he had owned a heating, ventilation, air conditioning company. So he gave me some training, which was, when I look back on it, very useful.
How supported did you feel in those early days?
I was left alone pretty well on my own. Lost was how supported I felt.
Yeah, I can imagine. What was it like dealing with the residents?
The residents, as a rule, were the majority of them. There's always a few outliers, but the majority of them were good people. The Strata Council, again, was generally good people. Most of these people had made their fortune by hard work. I found that in later years that changes with the type of people you get when you find people that, say, are more speculators and less businessmen. Then the whole atmosphere of the strata and the building changes to suit the people that are there.
How much did you deal with the Strata Council?
A lot, from what I've seen and heard from other stratas, of which I've been involved with too. I was unusual in that I had a great deal to do with them. I hosted meetings, chaired meetings, presented papers on different facets of the building, did budget breakdowns, and a lot of stuff that was natural for me, but is not natural for a building manager in Vancouver, downtown Vancouver, Surrey, or Burnaby today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from what I know about the building and now seeing probably 100 other stratas. It's very unique. Why do you think that building particularly was so unique?
It was a prestige building because of its location and the year it was built. And it was a new type of living, like I said, the condo community. And none of the people that bought there were speculators. They all bought to live there at that time. A lot of them changed their minds after a while, but at that time they weren't interested or even thinking about making money on it. They were looking at a home.
Interesting. So that obviously had a big part to do in the care and the involvement of the people in the building.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think a condo unit today has that likely exposure. I think it's very unlikely that you would get a majority percentage of the units that weren't interested in making a buck on it.
Right. Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. The investment, seeing the building as an investment, or as an investor, I think would definitely change or shift the entire feeling of the building, as opposed to people who are living there, who are friendly with each other, interested in building community. So yeah, what I'm hearing is it was a community. There was a core group of people who cared about your success. What was the scope? How many people did you manage? And there was a concierge there, 24/7 concierge, correct?
There was a 24/7 concierge, so that's 3 shifts of concierge, or 4, including weekends. There was a cleaning crew of between 4 and 6 people, which was a contracted crew. There was maintenance personnel, 3 others besides myself that knew various aspects of the building.
Okay, yeah, so fair amount of people in the building, cleaning and maintaining the building and taking care of residents' questions.
That's right, yeah. So it wasn't understaffed, it wasn't overstaffed as far as I can tell. Everybody seemed to be very happy with the balance. The residents and the staff, all my staff, got to know each other, so they would ask by word, can so-and-so come to my unit and look at this, because they kind of knew our specialties. One person might be a painter, drywaller, one's more of an electrician, one's more of a jack of all trades. So eventually the residents got to learn who to ask for what, and that helped the family type atmosphere.
Okay, interesting. Some owners today especially believe that you hire a strata manager and they take care of everything. Your strata fees pay for everything. When it comes to training and support, ongoing communication with someone in your position, how was that covered? Was it ever covered?
One thing I think that I learned, and I think everybody else learned, including Strata Council people, was that the property manager is not his official title. He is agent of the owner. And that makes a big difference. If people were told what he actually was, or she, that they were agents of the owners. In other words, it's not the property manager's policy that is running the condominium or the strata. It is the owners that are running it. They are issuing their proclamations through property manager, who is actually legally known as agent of the owners. I think that confused us even as staff for a while, when we expected the property manager to make rules when it wasn't his job. It was the owner's job to tell the property manager what rules they wanted. And that took a few years for me to get that clear in my own head, so I can imagine what happened to other people, especially superficial contact people who would expect the property manager did this or did that. The property manager doesn't do most anything except carry out the decisions that the council makes. So an inept council will result in an inept property manager. There's no other way that it can happen. An expert property manager or a well-renowned property manager will be the result of a well-renowned council.
What was your relationship? I know you were quite involved with the Strata Council, and you met with the Strata manager probably quite a bit. I think that building had a lot of high needs, required a lot of attention. What do you think is what's the ideal relationship and the role of the building supervisor or building manager in regards to dealing with the Strata Council and the Strata manager? Do you need some boundaries set up, or are you there as a servant to whatever the owners and the Strata manager wants from you?
I don't think you can actually come up with a fixed action or a fixed role to play in that, because I've been to so many buildings now, which I do consulting work for various stratas. They're all different. So a property manager or a building manager, in this case we're talking about, a building manager has to be a certain type of person in one condo and a totally different type of person in another one. So there's no set type of action you can do. In some stratas, you will be given more free rein in certain parts of the building than others, and it'll be the reverse when you go to a different strata. So for instance, one strata may say, we really want to keep up the cosmetic look of the building and painting and stuff like that, and the building manager will agree and carry that through. But he's not managing the building, he's managing what the strata requires him to do. Because if he was managing the building, he would say, no, we're not going to paint that area. We need the money too much for ball bearings to the sewage pump.
Right.
If you follow what I'm saying.
I do. So, in your opinion, was it quite problematic? And do you think it would be difficult for most people to navigate and manage that highly complex relationship? Like, for example, your Strata Council president asks you to do something, and you know it's not your job, and you know you shouldn't be doing it, but it's but you feel like you have to, or you risk angering that person and possibly losing your job.
That again depends a lot on, like, I can't remember actually being asked to do something that I didn't really want to do. I'm sure it happened, but it wasn't constant. It wasn't frequent enough that it made a memory in my mind that happened a lot. I would suggest that you have to be confident enough in yourself that you give for instance, the example I gave you, that you needed a ball bearing for the sewage pump instead of a new paint job for the billiards room. That example, you have to say, if I was that person, I will warn him about the ball bearing for the sewage pump, but in the end, he has to paint his room. He's going to paint his room whether I make trouble or not. All I can do is warn him. You're going to run out of money one way or the other. And then it's not my job or my position to hector him, if you follow.
Yes.
I don't know if that was good.
Well, I think what I'm getting at is I want your opinion on, in an ideal world, the strata manager is the agent of the owners, so they're not making decisions. It's up to the Strata Council and the owners to make their decisions.
Right.
And there is a huge opportunity for someone in this position with experience and who's got boots on the ground to say, hey, wait a minute, I would recommend this, or I'd suggest this. This would be the most important thing. Helping them, educating them on not only the state of the building, but also what would be priority and what's important. As opposed to a strata manager, which is they're not technically supposed to give their opinion, and they're only on site maybe for 2-3 hours a month. Whereas the strata building manager is there 40 hours a week.
The ideal circumstance would be for somebody from the strata, maybe not the president, maybe they have committees like mechanic committee, painting committee or whatever, but to have the building manager make a one-to-one relationship with that person so they can easily talk to each other, so they can explain things to each other. And the strata person should not be top down, because it's in his own good to listen to the building manager and find out the weaknesses, because in the end it'll make him look good if he prevents a few disasters along the way. So I think the relationship, the interpersonal relationship between two people, the strata condominium, the building manager, the actual on-site guy,
right,
and the Strata Council is really important. If you don't have that, if it all goes through the property manager or the agents of the owner, if it goes from one person to him to back to the other person instead of straight across, you will have nothing but chaos, because you can't transfer your emotional feeling to a third party.
And that nonverbal, that communication, nonverbal or verbal, is extremely important in not only resolving problems, but communicating what's required and getting a problem resolved.
It is, because I can say from experience that I have gone to Strata Council and said, I am very concerned about this and this. This is going to cause this and this is going to cause that, and we're going to have a problem. They can see by looking at me that I'm not kidding. They can see I'm ready to prove it to them. Okay, now if I put that to the strata agent, all they get is a report. Oh, Ken thinks this is bad and that's bad. Oh yeah, well, Ken, we're worried about everything. That's the kind of natural human reaction you get when it goes to a third person. And so you can't, I don't think, have a successful management team unless there is some one-to-one Strata Council to maintenance company, or maintenance, in your case, maintenance management. If there is not that one-to-one at all levels, right down to the janitor. The janitor might be sweeping the floor and be right upset because of the where she has to soak her mops because it doesn't work. And if she can take one of the Strata Council members aside and say, see how this doesn't work, the council can say, oh, great, you're wasting your time on that. We'll fix it. And then that saves us money. If it goes through a third party, basically your agent for the owner, the property manager, you lose that. First of all, he's not going to be able to go and show the council member why the mop doesn't work in that situation because he doesn't do it. So you see what I mean? They miss that. The whole councils need a more one-to-one relationship with their service people, including the plumbers and the contractors. They can use the property manager as agent for the owner to command certain things be done, but the decisions have to be made by them, not by the property manager.
Exactly. Yeah, so I'm hearing the need for communication, the need for trust, and the people that are on site doing the work having some influence and some, it's absolutely necessary for the effectiveness of everybody and to be efficient, that there is a relationship between at least one council member and the people who are maintaining the building and taking care of the building on a daily basis.
And no council member should be stuck with the whole building. They should partition it into different segments, recreation, landscaping, and each council member should have a responsibility to get to know the contractors or the staff involved in that, so that he or she has a feel for what is going on. Without the third person, without the agent for the owners. The agent for the owner should be the third person, but at the end of the chain. So you got your staff or contractor, then your Strata Council, and then the arrow goes straight to the agent for the owners to make sure that it happens. What those two lower levels have decided, the agent for the owner makes sure that it happens. That's all he does. He doesn't take part in, should we do this, should we do that, unless he's got a lot of experience in a particular building scenario.
Right. Now, small things like paper for the printer, pens for the office, wouldn't be, it would just be mind-bogglingly inefficient to have to get approval from the Strata Council, who would then approve the Strata manager to allow for the building manager to go and pick up some pens and paper. It's just would be common sense that there would need to be some trust or some, say $250 or $500 a month, where the council just says, yeah, go ahead. You've got this amount every month that you can use for supplies or necessary equipment. What do you have experience with that? Did you have an arrangement like that? When
I first started in this business, I got $100 float for tools, and I remember them having the Strata Council and myself had known each other for approximately a week, and they spent a good 2 or 3 hours basically going over my list of stuff that I was going to buy for that $100. I left, 15, 16, 17 years later, and basically I had written many a check for $30,000 with just cursory involvement of the Strata. Things change, but that's developing a trust. Okay.
Right. Right.
So I think your people should have a float, $100 for paper and stuff, and then as that goes, and after a year, it probably will be up around $800 a month or so, or 1,000. But I don't think it should be given right away, because I've also had experience with people who just decide they're going to go and buy some plaything with them with the float.
Right. What were, in your opinion, what's the difference between a janitor, a caretaker, building supervisor, and a building manager?
Big difference because of the names. I'm not saying the names are right, but if you name a janitor a building manager, then don't expect it to be a smooth project. You'll have all kinds of problems, because the people that move in there don't have a lot of experience in stratas, and they're going to say, that's the building manager, he knows why the elevator is stuck. Or that's the building manager, he knows why the swimming pool is closed. And the building manager had better know that, or he shouldn't be carrying the name. He shouldn't walk in and find out that his pool has been closed and he has no idea why it's closed, because the pool contractors thought it was a health emergency. Well, what health emergency? Well, I don't know. There's too much put on the name. Building manager means you know what you're managing. Caretaker means you're going to be cleaning up a mess. You're not going to be making any decisions. There's a huge difference. I think most of the people that are called building managers should be called custodians. 95% of them, 98% of them. Because they don't know their building. They can't reset the elevator. They can't reset the fire alarms. They can't turn off the sprinklers. That's a manager's job. You're a caretaker if you say the sprinkler head is broken on the 14th floor, and I need you to turn the fire system off because it's a false alarm, because the janitor broke it with the handle of his broom. If your building manager stares at you blankly, you gave him the wrong name. You got to say, can you help me out, Mr. Caretaker? Because we're certainly over our heads here. And it makes those people so bad, such a bad image for them, because you have new residents who just bought a $1 million condo, come in and you're pointed out as a building manager and you don't know nothing. If you're pointed out as a caretaker, there's no problem, because they say, oh, he sweeps the floors. Of course, he doesn't know how to reset the elevator. But if he has a building manager tag on him, name tag, building manager, he better know how to reset the elevators, call the security firms, get the right sprinkler plumber in. Otherwise, he should cover that name tag and just say, no, not yet. Maybe in a couple of months, but not yet.
Let's just finish off with a couple more questions. What do you think is the key to a happy Strata Council, and what are some of the pitfalls to avoid?
Talk to them as much as you possibly can. Get a feel for it. Read their body language. Be friends with them. Do small favors. That's part of our society, is doing small favors. Give them little breaks that the rest of the residents don't get. I don't mean going overboard, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't hurt to sweep their parking lot a few more times, and that kind of stuff. Because those people you need to be able to talk to. And in the end, it'll save you a lot more time than what you would have saved by saying that's not my job, because they'll start to side with you. And I think the key is, like you said, communication. Communicate. If you're talking to nobody but the property manager, you can write off the building. Well
said. what do you think are some personality traits that would be ideal for a building manager?
He has to have something he knows really good. He can either be a mechanical guy, which was my expertise, a HVAC guy, but he could also be an expert drywaller or an expert painter or an expert cleaner. And there is a big difference in cleaners. Some people don't understand that. But if you're something really good where you know is really unlikely that could find anybody as good as you, you got that one key. Emphasize that basic key, and the others will follow along. The other talents you will learn as you go. But you got to be good at something. If you're not good at anything, like you're mediocre at everything, you're gonna have a tough time.
Indeed, indeed. But thank you for all of this information and sharing all your experience with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, and good luck.